What's up, everyone? Path of Exile 2 has now been out for 2 months. And in those 2 months, I've played this pretty much every single day. I've got over 500 hours in the game. I've done pretty much everything I can think of to do in the game. I've leveled multiple characters. I've played a ton of Endgame. I've beat the Arbiter of Ash, the end boss. I've done pretty much everything there is to do. And I'm still logging in every day to play more because I'm really enjoying the game. So overall, I think this game's incredible. I love the game. I think it's done an amazing job. And I think the game is going to be around for years, and it's just going to get better and better and better. But the game has problems. The game has some big problems in its design and some big problems in its end game gameplay. And that's what I want to talk about today. Just some big things that I personally think need changing in the game based on my experience with the game. And if you can relate to any of this, let me know down below. And if there's any big things that you've encountered during the game that have either put you off, made you, part ways for a while, let me know. I'm really curious what people think right now. And I think it's good to talk about feedback right now during, this kind of testing period. But let's get into this. Okay, so I want to start first with what I think is the number one issue. The number one big problem with the game, I think, is this: the map. The map is, if you've only played a little bit of the game, if you're watching this and you haven't really pushed endgame much, this is the map. This is where everything happens. This is where all of your endgame is, and it's kind of the create your own endgame. You go around, you place waystones in all these different points, and you create your own maps. And it isn't good. Okay, so here's the problem with it. Say you're trying to run some endgame content. You've got breaches, rituals, expeditions. Say you're trying to run breaches. They're fun. And if I was to run a map like this is going to be a very fun map. This is going to be a very fun breach, chance to spawn additional breaches, more rare monsters, more monster density. That's going to be a very, very fun map. And at the end game of Path of Exile 2, I want to run that back to back. I want to run that, and then I want to run another, and I want to do that all day. I want to farm breaches like that all day long and just have fun and get loads of rewards and loads of loot, because that's how ARPGs work. You get your character to a good point where you can do the really fun content, and you do the content. Not in Path of Exile 2. To get a map like that, first thing you've got to do is set up all these towers. So to get all of these different affixes and all these different things affecting that node, you need all these towers to overlap. So you see here, we've got like 4 towers all overlapping these big auras. So first things first, you've got to find a cluster of towers. So let's go over here. We've got to work our way over here, and we'd have to do all of these maps all the way here to get to this cluster. Then when you get to this cluster, you've then got to do all those towers. And towers suck. There's nothing in them. You just climb a tower, press a button, and put a precursor tablet in. So towers suck. So you've got to get there, put the towers in, and then it will reveal a bunch of nodes and add a bunch of breaches to those nodes. So when you've got over there, you've set it all up, and you've put a bunch of breaches on the map, and they've all got these cool effects, you're good to go, right? No, because now you need really good waystones. Now you need to get really good waystones, which means you've got to go in your stash, and you've got to go to, we don't have a map tab, so you've got to go to your tab and you've got to get your waystones out. You've got to get them to tier 15, and then you've got to start working on them. So, we take one. This one has monsters deal more cold. Okay, we'll empower it. More beasts. Okay, we'll regal it. Okay, monsters deal more damage. Okay, that gives us nothing. Okay, let's try another one. Okay, we'll get this one. Oh, it's bad. It starts bad. We'll put this on it. More pack size. We'll put this on it. More rare chest. Okay, that doesn't work either. So now you have to spend ages getting some good waystones. To even get into one map is so much work when all you want to do is have fun. And I think that is the number one issue. And that's just using breaches as one example. And that doesn't even take into account the problems that could go wrong with your map while you're doing this. Like, you could set up all these nodes, and then you could end up with a node like this, which is a Val Factory. And that means that, you're just going to be looking at all these little corridors, and all these corridors are terrible for breaches because they don't open up and give you the full thing you need for a breach. You could set up towers like this, and you think, oh, you see this, you go, I've got 5 towers over here. You work your way over, that's a mountain, and that's an ocean, and the nodes don't even line up. So how do I even get from this tower down there? Oh, none of these nodes even line up. So you have to go all the way around. So the map is just constantly working against you. And I think this whole mapping experience is just I wouldn't say scrap it, but take it really back to the ground up of what makes an ARPG fun. What do players want to do? What is the fun part of this endgame? And then work from there. Okay, that's by far the number one thing I think that needs changing. The number two problem I would say is crafting. I think crafting is in a pretty bad spot. We're not crafting, are we? We're not crafting. This is what we're doing. Say you want a quarterstaff. You grab a bunch of quarterstaffs, you go to your stash, and you just do this. Da 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 da. Then you go like this, and then you go, okay, well that's bad. That's bad. That's bad. That's pretty good. Okay, let's do this. Okay, now that's pretty good. Okay, I've crafted this. I've crafted a good item. That's all we're doing. Obviously, that's a little bit exaggerated, but there's not really any, deterministic crafting. We can't craft with a focus. We can't use our time and our resources and our energy to make the items we want. We can put an essence on it. Say you want to make a wand with lightning damage, spell, crit, all that stuff. You can put a lightning essence on it when you first start, and then you can use omens at the end, and you can kind of hope for the best. But there's nothing where you can say, if I grind this all day, I can add this to my item. If I do this all day, I can do this to my item. And I think that's what the game needs. It needs a crafting table. It needs a set of things to grind, a set of things to farm that can then result in the things you want. Okay, next up is a problem that I think we're going to see with the story. And going through the story multiple times over time, I think is going to be a big problem. So I will say, I think the story was fantastic. We've got 3 acts right now. Each one was very different maps, different biomes, different monsters, different bosses, and each one feels very unique to itself. Going from the farm, the train in Act 2, and then the Aztec theme in Act 3. It was fantastic. And when we have 6, I think the whole world is going to feel amazing. The problem comes with leveling alts. I've got 3 characters right now that are fully through the game. They finished all of the acts and they can do maps and they're at endgame. And I've got no desire to make another. I really want to make, a gemling. I want to make a ranger. And I just don't want to play through the whole story again because it's time consuming, it's tedious, and it's not fun. Mostly because, you're held back by progressing through every map one by one. And then secondly, because all of the good abilities start to come later on. Your first hour, you have 1 or 2 abilities. And it's such a slow burn before it starts getting fun that it doesn't feel appealing to go and do that. There's much other things that I'd rather do than do 6 acts all over again. And I think the further we go in this game, if that doesn't change, it's going to feel more and more tedious. If they reset this, they're planning to do a big reset in a few months when they do the next big content update. If I want to get my witch back to endgame, I've got to go through all 6 acts again. If I want to go get my monk to endgame again, I want to play the new changes to the monk. I have to do 6 full acts again. And it's just not fun. It's not enjoyable. And I know everyone memes, default bad. And Diablo 4 has a lot of problems. But one thing I think it does well is when you finish the story on your main character, when the new season comes out or whenever something new comes out, there's just a button, skip campaign. And then you play your new character, the campaign is already completed, and you're pretty much at maps. You just go from 1 to max level in their version of maps. You just zoom to max level, and then you do the end game. And I'm not saying this, we should be able to zoom to end game in an hour, but there's got to be something better than running that campaign every single time there's a reset on every single character. And maybe you didn't even know that that's how this is going to work. Maybe this is your first ARPG, but I see it coming, and I know I'm already burned out on the campaign. So yeah, I think that's going to be a problem. And I think one thing they could do to, if they are 100% fixed on this is what we want you to spend hours on the campaign, the maps need to go. There's one thing that puts me off, and it's this zone is horrible. This zone is horrible. Every map towards the end of Act 3 is these massive sprawling maps. You got to go up one road, oh, dead end, up another road, dead end, oh, checkpoint, up another road, up this other winding path. It's not fun. Make the maps take a couple of minutes and I'll zoom through them. But making this a 1 hour chore experience, you got to do it in Act 3 and you got to do it again on Cruel. I don't know who's enjoying that. I'm not, maybe you are, but I think that needs a big change at the bare minimum. Okay, next up, I want to talk about the balance of the builds at the end game and the meta and the requirement to always play the meta, because I think that is a problem. So right now, if you were to look at any build, find a random build, I've made a few builds as well, I'm guilty of this, any build online, and look what it does, it's probably using these 2 abilities, Herald of Ice, Herald of Thunder, in combination to wipe the entire screen. If you just Google best Titan build, click it, oh, he's using Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder to wipe the screen. Best Ranger build, Herald of Ice, Herald of Thunder to wipe the screen. And then if they're not doing that, they're stat stacking. So they're getting tons of decks. They're using the hand of wisdom in action. They're using the staff. They're using the chess piece. They're doing all this, and they're just stat stacking all their stats to wipe the screen. And loads of builds all fall into one of these categories that are using these overpowered things. And that's a problem in Path of Exile, because every build can use everything. If you were to look at other MMOs, like using Diablo as an example, a sorceress is a sorceress. You can use fireballs, you can use ice, you can use lightning. A necromancer can only use necromancer abilities and minions. Whereas in Path of Exile, everyone can do everything. So we're getting these, mercenaries with crossbows running around with staffs, quarterstaffs. We're getting like witches running around with sorcerer abilities. And if one thing is meta, if one thing is super overpowered, all the builds will funnel to it. And that's causing a pretty dry meta. And that normally would be fine. I love playing non-meta builds in games. I think non-meta builds are really fun to try and just make weird, quirky builds. But in Path of Exile, it's so punishing that you're punished so hard for not playing the meta. Say you did make, you put up all the time to make these really good map layouts where you had these really juiced maps. You had this where you've got a really good breach, or you set up a really good ritual setup where you had like really good rituals, like I don't know, like this one over here. You had like a decent ritual. So you've got a good ritual map and you set it up, it took you a while, and then you run it, and you're on a non-meta build, you're on a pretty average build that's just a bit fun, and you fail it. You get one shot. Well, you lose that map, so that map gets wiped. It will no longer have a ritual, a boss, it'll have nothing on it. It'll be a blank map. You lose the waystone, which probably took you a while to get a good waystone. You lose XP, which, yeah, okay. And at high levels, that can be a significant amount of XP. So you're punished so hard for failing. And that's not even talking about like Trials of Sekima, where losing in there feels rough. There's so much punishment for actually failing that you're kind of pushed to just play the meta. You don't want to lose that. You don't want to be doing a breachstone, fail it, and lose your breachstone. You don't want to lose the time that you've put into the game because you're choosing to play it on hard mode. And I think that is causing so many people to play these boring builds, but not boring, but repetitive builds. It's causing me to play a fairly repetitive build. Now I've got a good amount of divines. I got a good setup. I'm going to try some more, less meta, more quirky builds, but I don't know how long I'm going to last, because I don't like losing all my stuff. I don't like losing all the time I put into this stupid map. So yeah, I think that's something that needs work. I don't know how they fix it, because I don't think balancing it halfway through a season, a league is a good idea. When they took away cast on, when they nerfed all that, I was playing a cast on freeze sorceress, and it was horrible. So I don't think taking stuff away from people mid-league is fun, but letting it go like this, so dry and so, repetitive, isn't the way to go either. Let me know what you think would be a good fix. I guess you could say, make the end game less hardcore and less punishing. I don't know if that's the right answer either, but I don't know how to fix it, but it's definitely a problem. Let me know your thoughts on that one. Okay, the last thing, I'm just going to kind of bucket it as more quality of life. They need to do like a quality of life overhaul. I think if I want to play Path of Exile 2 for 3 hours, I want to spend like 2 hours, 45 minutes just blasting maps back to back. And all the loot should just go somewhere. The loot should just be a non-factor. Like, I'm not saying just give us a pet that picks everything up for us and does everything for us, but there needs to be something to give us more time in the game and less time in our hideouts. So some of the big problems, number one, we need a map stash tab. I think this is probably coming soon. We need it immediately. It's so tedious, because I think waystones as a whole just aren't good. You want to make a bunch of 15s. You got to turn your 10s to 11s, your 11s to 12s, and all of that drops at endgame. You could be running the hardest maps in the game, and a tier 12 waystone will drop. So you got to keep them and upgrade them to 13s and 14s and 15s, and then you got to craft on them, and then okay, that's got nothing good on it. And there's so many bad things that can roll. Out of all of these, I've put down 3 ones that are good that I want to run soon. So I think waystones as a whole are so tedious, and they just come into the mapping. They make mapping more of a chore. Next, when you run a map, I think there should be some way to finish a map and then be back into a map as fast as possible. So say I've got a fairly decent amount of stash tabs. They're numbered, they're labeled, I've done the work to get a load of stash tabs. But then when I come back, let's say you do a breach. Let's say you do a breach and it's got like 3 breaches in it and you have an inventory full. you've got to manually pick up every single breach splinter, click every single one until you have a full inventory, and then you're going to come. I go here, and I'm going to put my breach splinters up here, and then I put my breach things. I got to go put my essences in here, and then I put my delirium stuff in here, and then I put my gems in here. I wish there was just like an auto sort button. You just walk up to it, you open the stash, you press a button, and this just goes where it needs to go. It's so long. And I mean, yeah, you could just dump everything in one tab, which I do sometimes, but then you've got to manually go through it all afterwards. I think the process just be easier. Like, oh, I've got something that I need to salvage. Okay, I'll salvage this because it's got quality. I need to go reforge this. It's got this. And then I need to go through. Give us an auto sort. Just give us some button. We press it and everything goes where it needs to go. I think that would be so much nicer. And trading, don't even get me started on trading. How this released with trading like this, where you go, I'm going to make a tab and I'm going to put things in the tab. And then if somebody wants this item, they can whisper me. It's so dumb, man. You have Alva. You have this exchange, which is beautiful. You say, oh, I want a breach zone. You go, okay, I want a breach zone. I've got exalteds. Okay, 200 exalteds for a breach zone. Yeah, okay, that sounds good. Done. And it's done. It's so clean, so nice. But then anything that's not on, anything that's not on the exchange, anything that doesn't fall into these brackets has to go through this system where, you have to go in, you have to look it up on the market of you have to look it up on the trade site of how much it's going for. And then you have to try and value it yourself. And then you have to place it in a tab, or maybe you need to get more tabs from the store because, you want to sell a few things because you're playing the game a lot. And then you have to list them, and then you go run a map, and then someone goes, oh, I'd like to buy your item. You got to leave your map, and then you whisper someone because you want to buy their things, and none of them are replying. The whole thing is terrible, and I'd just play solo self-found if the crafting was good, but it isn't. So yeah, trade, I don't know, get rid of it. Give us an in-game marketplace. It's 2025. Just commit to an in-game marketplace. Upgrade Alva to have every item, or upgrade Alva to have searchable filters for armor and weapons and all the things that go on the trade site, jewels, all that stuff. It would be so much nicer. Quality of life. That's this section. I don't make rant videos. I make a lot of guides and builds, but today I just wanted to get it all out there. I wanted to just share all the things that I think need to change. I'm not going anywhere. I love the game, but we need to talk about the problems because they're here. But yeah, that's the video. I'd love to hear what you think. Do you resonate with any of these? Can you relate to any of these problems? And what would you say are the big things that you're facing as you're playing the game? What are the big things that you think need addressing sooner rather than later before we start pushing into, more actual content? But yeah, that's the video. Thank you for watching. If you've stayed all this while, you've seen a full rant. So thank you for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you in the next one.